Hello and welcome to the second episode of Romantic Reads with Rachel, where I will share all about everything related to books and writing. That's right, get ready to enjoy some of my favorite romance reads, learn to write your own novel, and listen closely as we delve deeper into the exciting fictional worlds I've created. If this sounds like your kind of podcast, then welcome to my book club. I am your host, Rachel Connell. I am a wife, a mom, rancher, and a published independent author. For today's episode, I'm going to be giving you a preview of my book, The Homeschool Way. I realize it's not a romance novel, but we'll get there. I figured I'd get this one out of the way right now in case anyone had questions about it from my first and last podcast. In my introduction, I explained that we were on our 6th year of home educating our 3 children, but I bet you're wondering why we started in the first place and how I make it work. Since the birth of my youngest, I'd been pestering my husband to let us homeschool the kids for a couple of years. He would always respond with the fact that we didn't have the time. We didn't have the patience to be our children's teachers, and of course, he had to bring up the tiny detail that I hated math. Let's be honest, I have a creative and imaginative mind, but when you start adding the alphabet to math equations, I'm out. That's it for me. I'm sure there are many of you parents out there with the exact same thoughts, especially when the public school system decides to go and change the way they teach mathematics. So it makes it even harder for you to help your child with their after school homework. Right around the year 2016, when my 2 oldest were in 3rd and 4th grade at the local public school, and my youngest was 3, there was a school shooting somewhere in the state. A pretty bad one, actually. I don't recall which school or which town it happened in, but it was enough to approach my husband one last time about homeschool. I said, let me try this for one semester. That's all I'm asking. If it doesn't work, we can send them back to public school and I'll never speak of homeschooling again. Turns out we are pretty content and happy to home educate our children. It went so well that 6 years later, we're still going strong. So I bet you're wondering how we surpassed those little issues that I brought up earlier. Well, we discovered once we got started, we actually had more time. How? Well, because our kids were home with us on the ranch and were able to help with the daily chores and field work, even with prioritizing schoolwork after animals were fed in the morning. As for patience, I'll be honest, it gets tested at times, just as well as any parent out there you'll experience whether they homeschool or not. That's just the way it is. That's life with children. But we remind ourselves that we were our children's teachers from birth, even if we didn't realize it. They are learning from us every day how to walk, talk, act, watching how we interact with each other and other adults and children. How we handle the tough stuff in life is how they learn how to handle their own hard times. And finally, we get to the math. Well, I got around this tricky subject because it turns out I have 2 advantages in my corner. One, my husband's fairly good at math, so he usually takes on that area for our youngest, and our 2 oldest, they have an online math program that teaches it to them. They do the assignments and tests on it, and it automatically grades it, making education at home a heck of a lot easier. All right, so how am I allowed to homeschool my kids if I don't have a teacher's license? Because let's face it, I don't. But my book, The Homeschool Way, goes into greater detail on this and the laws that protect our rights as parents. But listen closely to this next part because it is extremely important. Not all homeschool laws and regulations are the same for every state. Every single state is different, and I suggest you do some research. I highly recommend Googling HSLDA. They are the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and they have all of the laws for every state on their website. If you learn nothing else from this episode but that, then my work is done for the day. Always double check your state's laws at the beginning of the school year. Best rule of thumb that I can give you. Things change and sometimes at a fast pace, and we never know it until it's too late. Now, What prompted me to write this homeschool book in the first place is the fact that I had been homeschooling for 2 or 3 years at the time that I wrote it. And I had a few friends and acquaintances asking me a bunch of questions about how I got started and how they can get started. It wasn't just one or two questions here or there from a couple of people either, because I would have been more than happy to do that, answer those, and I did. But it was at least 10 to 25 questions from around 8 people. That gets to be a lot, and I don't have the time of day to always answer questions nonstop. I got tired of repeating myself, and the idea popped into my head one day, why not write a starter book? And then everyone you can refer to it. Well, the idea of making an income from the books was a bonus, but with that being said, I will mention that I did drop the price of the book to the absolute lowest that Amazon would allow during COVID. There were so many floundering parents in the US that were at a loss for where to go and what to do, and I felt like I needed to help in any way I could. The Homeschool Way is a beginner's guide to get started in home education. It includes all things from the aforementioned state laws, statistics, record keeping, and portfolios, how to get over your fears, a day in the life of a homeschooled kid, opinions from my own kids, my husband, and other homeschool families that attend our local co-op. I also include a helpful list of website links, list of supplies, where to find curriculum, and field trip and volunteer recommendations. I bet you're wondering about socialization. Yep, that's covered in this book too, in very great length. This book is short and sweet and will not overwhelm you. Just the right amount to help you take that first step into home education. No matter your reasons, you can homeschool, it can work, and you can do this. Just take a look at my website in the podcast description and find the book for yourself. And by the way, I am so excited that you're here. If you love everything books, homesteading, and family life, then this is the podcast for you. Tune in next time for our very first romantic read, Everest, The Chronicles of Zara Faye.